welcome back to Watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We head to the market now to see how the numbers, what the numbers look like. Important to say that on Friday there was an OMO auction, and we did think that perhaps with the government trying to check its debt servicing, there will not be yields increase anymore, but I guess it was different. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Let's first of all look at the NGX and see that it closed in the red on Friday last week. So it's, well, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. We had most of last week in the red, 97,612.52, and still at 55 trillion naira, but it's looking really risky. You know, we have just 200 right here. We used to celebrate at 500, so 55.55, remember that. We did that a couple of times, but unfortunately it doesn't look like we are there now. Looking at the activity charts, the volume in green, deals in green for the week. Value in the red, lost some money right there. 40.71 billion is what the market closed with after 38,487. We can see the stocks that moved, made this move for the market last week. If we could have that, if not, we'll just jump into the fixed income space where we speak to Demola Oshutoki. Demola Oshutoki is with Access Bank, is a fixed income dealer with Access Bank, to talk about that auction on Friday. Demola, good to have you. Looking very sharp for Monday. It's Monday anyway, I shouldn't expect anything.
I agree with you.
Well, anyways,
I'm taking it. Yes.
So on Friday there was that OMO auction, and I think the rates are still going up. While some people have thought that we should not expect that because interest rate is going up, then the yields will also go up. But I think that was in contrast with what we saw on Friday.
110%. So what we saw within the week was we saw an NTB auction that occurred on Monday where there was about 500 billion. And this occurred after the MPC's decision where there was about 150 basis points increase. So it increased from 24.75% to 26.25, which it's at currently. The expectation from that NTB auction was that we'd expect to see rates increase. However, that was not what we saw. There was a subscription of about 1.5 trillion, of which they only sold about 600 billion. So you can see that there was a bit of a conservative approach from the DMO. However, what we then saw from the CBN on Friday was a surprise OMO auction where a similar size, about 500 billion, was offered. But what we then did see was we saw an increase in terms of rates. So on the long end, it increased by about 1% from the previous auction. So it's stood at about 22.49% as the stop rate, which represents about 29% yield. So for this auction, out of a subscription of 1.16 trillion, we saw the CBN sell 1.15 trillion. So we can see that what they were trying to do is send positive indications towards the market, you know, that we're interested in bringing a lot of FPI funds, and, you know, we're really looking to curb this inflation.
Yeah, but because the conversation that the federal government was sharp enough to raise more than half of what it intends to raise in the domestic market, even before the first half of the year will come to an end, that we shouldn't expect more increase in the yields. But, I mean, does it look like they're going to bring it? Also noting that, of course, this increases debt servicing.
So I think, as you said, what we saw within the numbers was you saw the DMO be, you know, a bit conservative. However, from the CBN's view, you know, this OMO auction is only for banks and FPIs. So, you know, so the indication was we're looking to continue to bring in those, you know, inflows, especially from FPIs. So they're using the OMO auction as kind of a tool to not only mop up excess liquidity, but also invite a lot of FPI flows. So we can see that the difference in terms of rates for the NTB, which was at 20.69, and the OMO, which was at 22.49. So I agree with you, and the DMO is being conservative. They've already borrowed well over 11 trillion to date, so, you know, there's no indication that they would be looking to increase rates significantly. But what we're seeing the CBN do is we're seeing them look to bring in more FPI flows. We can see that, you know, within the week on week, we saw a slight appreciation of the naira. We did see significantly more dollar liquidity within the market. Last week was about $1.2 billion within the week. So we can see that from the DMO's perspective, probably a more conservative approach, but CBN is looking to use the OMO auction to begin to bring in more of those, you know, FPI flows, and hopefully have some more stability on that NAFEX.
Yeah, so can we expect, I mean, the auctions, I think we have an auction this week also, can we expect that the focus will now be on OMO while the DMO continues its conservative approach?
I think for the DMOs in the next NTB auction, I don't expect that there will be an aggressive increase in rates. The last one was about 22.69 on the long end. Maybe it might be a slight, increase maybe to about 21% levels. But by and large, I think what we've seen is, especially within the short term, is that the CBN is looking to probably use the OMO auction as a good measure to be able to bring in more of those FPI flows. And for the NTP auction, there's no indication that they're looking to increase rates because, as you mentioned, there is a cost to borrowing at these expensive rates. So they're looking to maybe hold or keep a more conservative approach given the size that has already been borrowed to date.
So what happens in the secondary market now? Talking for investors now, for the NTB and the bond. What happens there at this time? What can we expect?
So at 20.69, that's about 27% yield is still a good return for investors. Previously what we had seen within the years, we've seen FPIs also play within the NTB space, but by and large, it's still a good return for investors. So I still expect that they will still continue to invest. Most of the NTB auctions have been well oversubscribed, so I don't expect that trend to persist. So I think we'll continue to see local players as well as foreign players continue to play within that NTB space. Yeah,
but it's still a negative real return when you look at the interest rate and inflation.
I agree with you, and the CBN governor, quite early in the year had mentioned about, moving towards real return, for investors. You are right that in terms of, looking at even at a stop rate of 22.49%, which was the case for the OMO auction, there's still a negative carry. That's 29% yield. Inflation is about, 34%. So I think, what we're expecting to see is, hopefully, especially within subsequent OMO auctions, within NTP auctions, there's a slight increase, still a good, return for investors. I think, for investors, they're looking for good returns on their investments. Currently, if you're getting, yields of 26-27%, it's still attractive. I'm sure that, especially for FPIs, they would want to see a bit more in terms of, moving yields probably to about 33%, 34%. So you're moving, more towards, positive, returns, for that investment. But I think within the short to medium term, we'll wait to see the approach that the CBN as well as the DMO will take on this.
All right, Demola, thank you so much. We have some auctions this week, I guess.
So there was an NTB auction last week. So the next NTB auction will be in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Demola Oshotukwu, fixed income dealer with Access Bank.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, so that's much we can take on Business Morning. You have a more robust business conversation at 1 p.m. Ladi Williams will be here along with Will Ebong. You can expect to get intraday markets and fresh conversations from the world of business. I'm Mini John Mekwa. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.